Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 3 of my Peacock series, and in this video we're going to be continuing the work on the peacock's tail and also working a little bit on the rock wall. If you want to follow along with traditional materials, check out part 1 in this series, where I have a list of all the paint brushes and canvas that I use. And we're going to be using Infinite Painter for Android. And here I'm just continuing work on the feathers on the peacock's wing. And I'm using a very small line, and you would use a very small brush if you're following along traditionally, probably a number 3 round. You could even use your script brush if you put enough water into the paint mixture. But a number 3 round will work just fine. And so here I'm just kind of trying to get the shape of the feathers and the wings. And as I've said before, they're rounded when you start with the small feathers, and then when you get towards the tip of the wing, and towards the end of it, then they become more oblong and sort of an oval look. And then I went ahead and just kind of smeared the colors together here, and you can do this with a paper towel if you're following along traditionally. And I just kind of want to soften the edges, because these are feathers and so they're going to be soft, and you don't want big hard edges when you're doing feathers. You want to give it that soft look. And so here I am trying to get the edge of the feathers, and I'm also trying to get the little ones on the other side of the wing, the what do you call it, the little iridescent feathers on the side. And so I'm just using a little bit of some yellow ochre if you're following along with your acrylics, and maybe a little bit of some cadmium yellow light. You just want kind of a really light color there so that it will show up. And I'm working a little bit more on the bigger wing that you can see. You can see the right wing the most, so it's going to have the most detail. So that's the one that I'm trying to soften the edges on, and just try to add a little bit of the green. As you can see, there's a little bit of iridescent green on there. And you can make this aqua color green using ultramarine blue and phthalo blue with some white acrylic gesso. And so I'm working on that and just trying to get the shape. You're going to have to go over this more than once just to get the shape and to get all the colors together. So that's what I'm doing here, just trying to get the shape of that wing, trying to get the correct taper that the tip of the wing has. And so I'm just kind of smoothing it in again. And if you're following along traditionally, like I said, you can use a paper towel or your finger, or you can use another piece of rag or something, just whatever you happen to have there. And then I'm going to work a little bit more on the yellow part and try to add some more to the little round feathers. And as we go further down on his tail, the eye looking feathers, the ones, the eye of the peacock or peacock eyes feathers, are starting to get bigger. So as they go further down on his tail, that's where the big design starts to happen. And so I'm just trying to get a little bit of that look there, making the round circles, and then I'll have to go back and add a bunch of blue, and I'll have to add some green, and As I said before, a peacock has a lot of detail on it. So you have to really plan to actually do quite a bit of work on a peacock. Even the stylized pictures of a peacock have lots of detail on them. And here I'm just adding the dots to those little feathers and working again on the wings, trying to add a little bit more of the dark back. And you're just going to have to go back and forth and add darks and lights to this till you get it kind of the way you want it to look. And you're trying to get kind of that iridescent look. And probably, I guess, if you're following along traditionally and you have some iridescent paint, you can try that. I don't know if all of them are that light fast. Some of them are. Depends on the brand. But there are iridescent paints out there, and you can usually sort of add that to your picture if you just want an extra punch to your painting. It makes it look kind of neat. And then here I'm going to add some of the green that is between the eye-looking designs of the peacock's tail. And then just add some more round yellow circles. And just kind of try to get the look of the eyes that are on his tail. And so I'm making little circles with cadmium yellow light if you're following along with your acrylics. And just kind of trying to get that that completed look that goes with his tail. And then I want to go ahead and just make sure that I have them in the right places. To just they kind of go in pairs, but you can see that sometimes they're 3 across, and of course, when his tail's fanned out, it looks completely different too. But the peacock's tail is pretty when he just has it laying on the ground as well. So I'm trying to kind of get that look here, and just trying to get sort of the pattern that the eyes make. And so I want to go ahead and add some blues and just try to get the eye color, I guess you would call it, the center of the funny little eyes on his tail. I want to go ahead and do that. And first I decided that his wing was getting a little too wide at the bottom, so I went ahead and painted over it with a little bit of yellow, and then I'm going ahead and trying to add the first layer that's inside the eye design on his tails, and it's kind of a aqua color and a light blue. So you want to go ahead and just add that in there, try to get it to look roundish or kind of, the peacock's feather is kind of oval or a teardrop shape. And so it's kind of a teardrop shape. So you would go ahead and try to make it that way. And then I've added the dark blue color there to that's on the end of the peacock feather. And I want to go ahead and it's kind of a crescent shape. It's not completely round. So the dark blue shape is going to be kind of a crescent or a V shape. And you just kind of have to look at the feathers and study them, because they're really quite interesting, and you can make a whole painting out of just one peacock feather. So it would be a good study if you wanted to just do one peacock feather. Sometimes I do that just as a quick sketch and for fun. And I used to have peacock feathers decorating my room when I was a kid, and I always liked to look at them because I always thought they were so pretty. And so you just have to go ahead and add these different colors that are around the feathers as well, and they're kind of some brownish colors and some purplish and grayish purple. And so you can use dioxazine purple, and you can mix it with burnt umber and add some white acrylic gesso, and you can add more purple, you can add more brown to that mixture if you're following along traditionally, just so that you can kind of get a different variation of color there. And then I'm adding a little bit of some of the darker blue color that is on the edge of his feathers. And you can see that there are layers and layers of his feathers on the tail. So you need to kind of add a darker edge there and try to show those layers. And also sort of the quill of the feather. They stick out a little bit on the edges. I don't want to bring too much attention to that. I would rather it just look more featherish, or feathery, I guess, on the edges of it. So I'm just kind of working on trying to get a little bit of a rough edge and get that texture. You want to try to show the feathery texture of his tail. And you can use your number 3 round if you're following along traditionally. Use one of the oil brushes, the filbert brush, or you can use the dry brush in Infinite Painter. Just one of the brushes that will kind of give you a painterly-like texture. And so here I decided to take a break from doing the tail because it can get really monotonous when you're trying to get all the details to the tail. And I decided to work on the wall and just kind of bring it up to the same level of finishedness that the peacock is. And when you're working on painting, sometimes it's good to try to keep every element in your painting on the same stage, same finished level, because it looks different when you have finished elements next to unfinished elements. So you want to kind of try to get those on the same level at the same time, because otherwise you can kind of misjudge things if you don't have a comparison of the same finished level. And so I'm adding some cracks in between the rocks and where the mortar is going to be that would cement the rocks together. And I'm using a dark purple, dark gray type of color for that. And if you're following along traditionally, you can use dioxazine purple, or you can use sort of a darkish brown burnt umber color. And here I just want to make irregular shapes. Make sure that your rocks look irregular. As you can see in the photo reference, they're all different shapes, they're all different sizes, they're different colors as well. And that just gives you more interest to your rock wall, and it doesn't look boring and bland and all the same color and all the same shapes. And I'm just kind of smoothing out the top of the rock slab that the peacock is sitting on, and just give it some variations to give it that rock-like texture, and make it a little bit lighter on the top than the bottom edge of the rocks, because the light's going to be hitting it more on the top. And so you want to go ahead and throw in more white with your purplish mixture if you're following along traditionally. But don't kill all the dark underneath it. Just kind of smudge that along the top there. And just make sure that you keep it kind of a rough look there. And so I wanted to add a little bit of some blue along the edges too as well. And you just want to try to kind of make the rock texture stand out, but keep it kind of a jagged edge or a rough edge, because you can have him sitting on a perfectly smooth bench and things like that, but this just kind of adds interest to your picture. And so here I'm trying to smooth across the top, and then yet show that there's also rocks that are underneath there, trying to get the three-dimensional look. And then here I wanted to go ahead and do his feet, and their feet are kind of a light gray or white color, so I started on that. And in part 4 I'll go ahead and finish working on the feet and the rock wall and some more feathers. So if you're interested in that, just stick around and hit the subscribe button, and if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below. And thank you for your support, and I will catch you later.